The competition in the EV space is certainly heating up, and today we're looking at the BYD Seal, which takes aim at the likes of the Tesla Model 3, the Polestar 2, the BMW i4, and even the Hyundai Ioniq 6. Now, the Seal is available in two configurations, at least at the time of filming and in the UK. There's a rear-wheel drive model, which starts from roughly £45,500, and then you have got the all-wheel drive model, which actually costs roughly £48,500. In this review, you're seeing if it's actually worth its price tag and how it compares to some of its key competitors. So to kick things off, I would like to talk about performance, and here you have got the rear-wheel drive model that has a singular motor planted on the rear axle that combines with the 82.5 kilowatt-hour battery pack to output 230 kilowatts of power, or 308 horsepower, and 360 newton meters of torque. I had it tested using Race Logic's Performance Box Touch from 0 to 20 miles an hour in 1.81 seconds, 0 to 30 miles an hour in 2.71 seconds, 0 to 60 miles an hour in just 5.8 seconds, and 50 to 70 miles an hour in 2.42 seconds, while also clocking a peak acceleration of 0.69 Gs. Now, if you do want a little bit more oomph, to say the least, you'll want to go for the all-wheel drive configuration. And indeed, over here you have got two electric motors, one planted at the front and one planted at the rear. Now, they combine to output 390 kilowatts of power, or 523 horsepower, and that gives you 670 newton meters of torque. Now, yet again, I had it tested using Race Logic's Performance Box Touch from 0 to 20 miles an hour in 1.13 seconds, 0 to 30 miles an hour in 1.65 seconds, 0 to 60 miles an hour in just 3.89 seconds, which is absolutely ridiculously fast, and 50 to 70 miles an hour in 2.07 seconds. I also clocked in a maximum acceleration of 0.87 Gs. So yes, indeed, no matter if you're going for the rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive model, the BYD Seal is ridiculously fast. Now, aside from its impressive performance, the vehicle's handling characteristics are absolutely sumptuous, and it actually really threw me off guard because I was not expecting to be blown away in this department. So you've got a great sense of connection with the front axle, even from the driver's position, which is done to perfection. If you go for the all-wheel drive model, you'll have increased degree of traction as well when you're exiting corners, and therefore means in even challenging scenarios, you're not going to have any problems whatsoever. Now, I would go as far as saying this is one of the better driver's vehicles out there, at least when it comes to the all-electric market, competing with the very best, such as the Porsche Taycan, the Cross Turismo, of course, as well, the BMW i4, and to a degree the Polestar 2. It's far superior than the likes of the Tesla Model 3 and also the Hyundai Ioniq 6. Frankly, over here, BYD have done a tremendous job. Now, all of this is thanks to the fact that you have got Intelligent Torque Adaptation Control Technology, ITAC for short. And indeed, over here, the manufacturer claims that it's going to elevate the handling, the performance, and also improve stability and even reduces wheel spin. And indeed, from my own test, I can certify that what the manufacturer is claiming is actually what you're going to be able to experience. Now, better still, the suspension system has been done to perfection. See, here you have got independent suspension for the very first time in any BYD vehicle. You've got double wishbones at the front and also a 5-link rear suspension system. These come fitted as standard on both models. However, the all-wheel drive model takes things one step further because you've actually got semi-active suspension technology for even better responsiveness and for a little bit more of a cushiony-like experience. And from my own test, having driven both of them, I can safely say that the all-wheel drive model does just take things one step further. It just feels a little less firm on the ground while still being very responsive. The rear-wheel drive model is no slouch, however. It's still very comfortable and far superior than the likes of the Polestar 2 or indeed the Tesla Model 3. I wouldn't say it's as good as the adaptive suspension system that's found on the likes of the BMW i4 or Porsche Taycan, but it does indeed come very close. Now, while that's all very well and good, what about when it comes to the all-important range? Well, here it's got the BYD Blade battery, LFP for short. And here you've got an 82.5 kilowatt-hour battery pack fitted on both the rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive models, at least at the time of filming and in the UK. Here, the rear-wheel drive model is quoted to go for 354 miles on the WLTP test cycle, while the all-wheel drive model goes for 323 miles. There's also a heat pump that comes fitted as standard. Now, for my own mixed driving test, which were predominantly done on the all-wheel drive model, I actually netted a very impressive 270 to 290 miles. Indeed, if you look at the mileage leaderboard, you'll find that only the Tesla Model 3 all-wheel drive actually comes out on top. And therefore the overall efficiency that Blade battery pack is able to achieve, specifically on an all-wheel drive vehicle, is absolutely incredible. Now, if you're going to go for the rear-wheel drive model, I would actually expect a little bit better range, pushing north of 300 miles. I can't really attest to this because I haven't put it through its paces in my own mixed driving test, but going from the manufacturer's claims, you should be able to net around 320 miles. Now, in the EV space, that is actually really impressive, and therefore makes the BYD Seal among one of the longest range EVs that I've actually ever tested. Now, for you to be as efficient as possible, you've got a degree of regenerative braking, and through the infotainment system you have got a standard and a high mode preset. The latter gives you stronger deceleration when you lift off the accelerator pedal, but doesn't give you that one pedal drive like some of its competitors offer, which is quite a shame. As for the standard mode preset, it's effectively like coasting on an ICE based vehicle. Now, of course, you have got the ability to plug it in, and here we'll take up to 150 kilowatts of input via its CCS port. Therefore meaning it can go from 30 to 80% in 26 minutes or 10 to 80% in 37 minutes. You also have an 11 kilowatt onboard charger that comes fitted as standard, and therefore if you go from 10 to 100%, it should take you roughly 8 hours. There is also vehicle-to-load charging that is fitted as standard across the entire trim range, which means that you can discharge the vehicle's battery pack at a rate of up to 3 kilowatts, allowing you to power a household appliance or of course charge another EV. Now, while that's all very impressive, it actually gets even better, because as soon as you step inside the cabin, you'll have a sense of luxury. Indeed, it's got a fantastic design and feel, with a leather trim, fantastic stitching work, and a good choice of materials. Now, you've also got a marine-inspired design, where supposedly the center console is looking like a seal emerging from the water. Now, I'm not too sure about that, but nonetheless it's available in a blue or black finish, the blue one being pictured. Now, it's also pretty practical, because you've got physical buttons found on the steering wheel and towards the center console, and yes, you do have physical stalks, unlike what you'd find on the new Tesla Model 3, but unfortunately the climate controls are all on the center display. Thankfully, the display itself is very responsive, intuitively laid out, and also vivid, unlike what I found on the BYD Atto 3 or even the BYD Dolphin. Here, the 15.6-inch display is rotatable as well. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would you want to use it in a portrait or landscape format? Well, it simply gives you the option. For example, if you're looking at your navigations, or of course if you're consuming media. It does also support Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is absolutely fantastic to see. Again, something that is omitted altogether in the likes of Tesla. Now, you've also got a 10.25-inch instrument cluster, and yes, again, it's not present on a Tesla vehicle, but you'll find it on pretty much all the other alternatives. It's great to see over here that this display is somewhat customizable and is also pretty vivid. It gives you all the key driving information that you'll require. But if you want to further heighten the experience in the all-wheel drive model, you'll find a head-up display, and this gives you a projection of your traversing speed or the safety systems that are in operation. It's great as it allows you to keep your eyes planted on the road. Now, no matter which trim level you go for, you'll find a 12-speaker Dyne audio system, and that includes a subwoofer. Now, the audio system itself does well across the sound frequency range, but doesn't quite compete with the Harman Kardon audio systems that are found within the Polestar 2, the BMW i4, or the likes of the premium audio system that's found within the Tesla Model 3. These vehicles just do a little bit better, so if you're a real audio nut, you might want to look at some of the vehicles that I've just mentioned. Nonetheless, it will suffice for most consumers. What I really do love, however, is the fact that the overall cabin insulation is done really well. In fact, you've got double layered laminated glass, which is supposedly done for giving you better sound and heat insulation. And from my own test on the all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive model, I found that the overall cabin was actually pretty quiet. Another area that really impresses is when it comes to your overall storage capacity. And here at the top of the center console, you'll find two wireless charging bays, which come fitted as standard across the entire trim range. Better still, underneath the center console, you'll find a USB Type-A and USB Type-C ports, which respectively deliver 18 and 60 watts of power, which is absolutely ridiculous. Indeed, you can rapid charge a smartphone or even a laptop. The same could be said for those who are sat at the back, because you have got these ports found towards the rear portion of the center console. Now, aside from this, you have got a pretty large open area with a non-slip material that is found underneath the center console, and a small little compartment that is found within the center armrest. Of course, you do also have the glove box, which has been optimized for right-hand drive vehicles. You then have the door bins, where at the front they will accommodate a 500ml bottle alongside some small to medium-sized valuables, and then the rear two are unsurprisingly a little bit more limited. Thankfully, you have got a small little storage area found towards the rear portion of the center console, and you've also got a pull-down armrest compartment for your rear occupants, which will also reveal 2 cup holders. Now, of course, when it comes to storage, we have to talk about its boot, and here you've got 400 litres to play around with. Unfortunately, the manufacturer has not shared a total figure, but one can only imagine it sitting between 1,200 to 1,300 litres, and it will go toe-to-toe with some of its main competitors. Here you've got 60/40 rear split folding seats with a completely flat loading bay. You've got a pretty large underfloor compartment, which will suffice for taking your charging cables or, for example, a tyre repair kit, a small little side area with some netting on it, and you've even got a front bit as well. Indeed, you've got 53 litres of capacity at the front of the vehicle. Now, it's also worth bearing in mind over here that it has got an electric tailgate that comes fitted as standard. However, it does not have that hatchback design like you'd find on the likes of the BMW i4 or the Polestar 2, and instead it's very similar to what you'd find on the likes of the Tesla Model 3. Similarly, and very much like the American automaker, BYD has optimized the rear footwell design because it's completely flat. And this means that the overall legroom at the rear of the cabin is absolutely excellent. As someone who's just under 6 foot, I had no problems whatsoever. Headroom on terms of the rear outer seat is also absolutely fantastic, although someone who sat towards the rear middle seat might feel a little bit more hemmed in. Still, it's absolutely excellent, specifically when comparing it to some of the alternatives, namely, for example, the likes of the BMW i4. Now, it's worth bearing in mind over here that as standard, you have got 8-way electronic controls for the driver and 4-way electronic lumbar support. You've also got 6-way electronic controls for the passenger. Better still, the front 2 seats are heated, and so is the steering wheel, and you've even got a panoramic glass roof that is featured as standard across both trim ranges. This is fantastic to see because most of its competitors charge extra for some of these features, or indeed just do not have them altogether. Moving swiftly on, let's talk about exterior design. And of course, looks are subjective, so make sure you share your own thoughts down in the comment section below. All I'll say is, having seen it in person, that the frontal profile reminds me of the Hyundai Ioniq 6, but it looks a little bit more aggressive due to how the headlights feed with that X sort of profile with the bumper. As for its side profile, you have got body-colored wheel arches, which is always appreciated, and you've got 19-inch alloys that come fitted as standard across the entire trim range. As for the rear, it does look actually pretty swish and sleek, and that's also due to its marine-inspired taillights, which stretch the entire width of the vehicle. Now, in terms of your color options, as standard, it comes in polar white, space black, ice blue, and Atlantis grey. If, however, you want indigo grey or shadow green, where the latter I think is quite nice, it will cost you an additional £876, which I do think is actually pretty reasonable. Now, while its aesthetics are subjective, the overall crash safety is completely objective, and here it scored 5 out of 5 stars on Euro NCAP's test, scoring 89% in adult occupancy, 87% in child occupancy, and 76% in its safety assist score. Indeed, it does well across the board. Furthermore, it's fantastic to see a plethora of driver assistance systems that come featured as standard on all trim levels. Here you've got forward collision warning, rear collision warning, automatic emergency braking, driver attention warning, blind spot detection system, intelligent speed limit info, lane keep assistance, lane change assist, and adaptive cruise control, which actually does work a treat by regulating the speed between you and the leading vehicle, making those longer mundane motorway drives less cumbersome. Frankly, over here I'm really impressed with what BYD have actually offered with the Seal. Furthermore, it gets even better when it comes to parking, because you've got rear cross traffic alert and rear cross traffic brake that come featured as standard, front and rear parking sensors, and high resolution 360-degree cameras, which actually takes the stress away when it comes to doing complex parking maneuvers. The overall maneuverability of the car is very easy, and as for visibility, I had no issues whatsoever at the front or at the side, although at the rear it's a little bit more limited due to its somewhat sloped design. So with all that in mind, it brings us on to our verdict. And quite frankly, the BYD Seal does a tremendous job across the board. It's very fun and engaging to drive. It goes the distance with its fantastic electric range. It's also very comfortable thanks to its suspension system and also its lavish interior. You've got plenty of tech within the cabin and plenty of driver assistance systems that come featured as standard. Excellent crash safety scores and also plenty of space for your rear occupants. Arguably the weakest point is its overall boot capacity, but still it should certainly suffice for a lot of consumers. Now, given all of this and in terms of its overall price point, it makes the BYD Seal very easy to recommend. As such, it gets our Best Buy award. Now, we're curious to know what you make of the vehicle down in the comment section below and if you would pick it over some of the rival alternatives. Now, if you have liked this independent detailed review, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing and hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and goodbye.